Chapter 2, Section 3, New Centers of Civilization. Nomadic peoples played an important role in the spread of civilization in Western and Central Asia. After about 12,000 BC, there was no dominant power in the region. The Phoenicians emerged as the most important trading kingdom in the Mediterranean area. The Israelites did not create an empire, but they left a world religion, Judaism, that influenced the later religions of Christianity and Islam. The role of nomadic peoples. Our story of civilization so far has focused on Mesopotamia and Egypt. Recent evidence suggests that another civilization flourished in Central Asia, in what are now the republics of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, around 4,000 years ago. These people built mud brick buildings, raised sheep and goats, had bronze tools, and used irrigation to grow wheat and barley. Recently discovered inscriptions show that these early people may have had writing. On the fringes of these civilizations lived nomadic peoples who depended on hunting and gathering, herding, and sometimes farming for their survival. Most important were the pastoral nomads who, on occasion, overran settled communities and then created their own empires. Pastoral nomads domesticated animals for food and clothing. They followed regular migratory routes to provide food for their animals. People who lived in settled communities often viewed nomads as hostile and barbaric. The groups did interact, however. Nomads traded animals and animal products for grains and vegetables they were unable to grow. Pastoral nomads also carried products between civilized centers. In this way, nomads often passed on new technology, such as the use of bronze and iron that helped strengthen civilizations. When overpopulation or drought disrupted the pastoral nomads' normal patterns, however, they often attacked the civilized communities to obtain relief. The Indo-Europeans were one of the most important nomadic peoples. The term Indo-European refers to a particular group of people who spoke a language derived from a single parent tongue. Indo-European languages included Greek, Latin, Persian, Sanskrit, and the Germanic languages. The original Indo-Europeans were based somewhere in the steppe region north of the Black Sea or in Southwest Asia. The original Indo-Europeans were based somewhere in the steppe region north of the Black Sea or in Southwest Asia. Around 2000 BC, they began to move into Europe, India, and Western Asia. One group moved into Asia Minor and Anatolia around 1750 BC. With the native peoples, they formed the Hittite kingdom, with its capital at Hattushash, Bogazkoy in modern Turkey. Between 1600 BC and 1200 BC, the Hittites created an empire in Western Asia and threatened the power of the Egyptians. The Hittites were the first Indo-Europeans to use iron. Iron made stronger weapons, which were also cheaper as iron ore was abundant. New invaders, the Sea peoples, destroyed the Hittite Empire. The end of the Hittite kingdom and the weakening of Egypt around 12,000 BC temporarily left no dominant powers in Western Asia. As a result, several small kingdoms and city-states emerged, notably around Syria and Palestine. The Phoenicians were one of these people. The Phoenicians. The Phoenicians lived in the area of Palestine along the Mediterranean coast on a narrow band of land 120 miles 193 kilometers, long. After the downfall of the Hittites and the Egyptians, the newfound political independence of the Phoenicians helped them expand their trade. Trade had long been the basis of their prosperity. The chief cities of Phoenicia, Byblos, Tyre, and Sidon, were ports on the eastern Mediterranean. The Phoenicians produced a number of goods for foreign markets, including purple dye, glass, and lumber from the cedar forests of Lebanon. The Phoenicians built ships and became great international sea traders. They eventually created a trade empire. The Phoenicians chartered new routes not only in the Mediterranean, but also in the Atlantic Ocean, where they reached Britain and sailed south along the west coast of Africa. They set up a number of colonies in the western Mediterranean. Carthage, on the North African coast, was their most famous colony. Phoenician culture is best known for its alphabet. The Phoenicians, who spoke a Semitic language, simplified their writing by using 22 different signs to represent the sounds of their speech. These 22 characters, or letters, could be used to spell out all the words in the Phoenician language. Although the Phoenicians were not the only people to invent an alphabet, theirs was important because it was eventually passed on to the Greeks. From the Greek alphabet came the Roman alphabet that we still use today. The Israelites. To the south of the Phoenicians lived another group of Semitic-speaking people known as the Israelites. They were a minor factor in the politics of the region. However, their religion, known today as Judaism, flourished and later influenced the religions of Christianity and Islam. Much of the Israelites' history and religious beliefs was eventually written down in the Hebrew Bible, which is known to Christians as the Old Testament. According to Israelite traditions, they are descendants of the patriarch Abraham. Their ancestors migrated from Mesopotamia to Canaan. Their lifestyle was based on grazing animals rather than on farming. Then, because of drought, the Israelites moved to Egypt, where they were enslaved until Moses led them out of Egypt. They wandered for many years in the desert until they returned to Canaan. Some interpretations of recent archaeological evidence contradict the details of the biblical account. It is generally agreed, however, that between 12,000 BC and 1000 BC, the Israelites organized in tribes and established a united kingdom known as Israel. The United Kingdom. By the time of King Solomon, who ruled from about 970 BC to 930 BC, the Israelites had established control over all the land that came to be called Israel and made Jerusalem into its capital. Solomon expanded the government and army of ancient Israel and also encouraged trade. Solomon is best known for building a temple in the city of Jerusalem. The Israelites viewed the temple as the symbolic center of their religion and of the Israelite kingdom itself. Under King Solomon, ancient Israel reached the height of its power. King Solomon was also known for his wisdom. Once, 2 women brought a child before him, each claiming that she was the child's mother. Solomon ordered his servant to cut the child in half, giving 1/2 to each woman. The first woman objected, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." The second woman replied, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then Solomon said, "Give the baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." According to the biblical account, When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. The divided kingdom. After Solomon's death, tension among the tribes within Israel led to the creation of two separate kingdoms. The kingdom of Israel was composed of the 10 northern tribes and had its capital at Samaria. To the south, the kingdom of Judah consisted of 2 tribes and had its capital at Jerusalem. In 722 or 721 BC, the Assyrians overran the kingdom of Israel and sent many Israelites to other parts of the Assyrian Empire. Most of these scattered Israelites, the 10 lost tribes, merged with neighboring peoples and gradually lost their identity. The kingdom of Judah managed to retain its independence for a while, but a new enemy soon appeared on the horizon. The Chaldeans defeated Assyria, conquered the kingdom of Judah, and completely destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC. Many people of Judah were sent as captives to Babylonia. Only the poorest remained. The words of Psalm 137 evoke the memory of their exile. Primary source. By the rivers of Babylon we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy. Psalm 137, chapter 1, verses 4 to 6. The Babylonian captivity did not last. New conquerors, the Persians, allowed the people of Judah to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their city and temple. The revived province of Judah was controlled by Persia until the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 300s BC. The people of Judah survived, eventually becoming known as the Jews and giving their name to Judaism. Judaism. The Jews were monotheistic. They believed in one God called Yahweh, the creator of the world and everything in it. In the Jews' view, God ruled the world. All peoples were his servants, whether they knew it or not. God had created nature but was not in nature. The sun, the wind, and other natural phenomena were not gods, but God's creations, to be admired but not worshipped. This powerful creator was not removed from the life he had created. God was just and good, and he expected goodness from his people. If they did not obey his will, they would be punished. However, he was also compassionate, slow to anger, and rich in love. Each person could have a personal relationship with this being. The covenant, law, and prophets were 3 aspects of the Jewish religious tradition. The Jews believed that during the Exodus from Egypt, when Moses led his people out of bondage, God made a covenant, or contract, with them. Yahweh promised to guide them if they obeyed the laws of God as expressed most prominently in the 10 Commandments. According to the Bible, Yahweh gave these laws to Moses on Mount Sinai. The Jews believed God sent certain religious teachers or prophets to serve as his voice to his people. The age of prophecy lasted from about the 1000s BC to the 400s BC, a time when the people were threatened or conquered by powerful neighbors. The prophets declared that faithlessness to God would bring catastrophe, but that turning from evil would bring God's mercy. The prophets introduced concepts that enriched the Jewish tradition. Later prophets embraced a concern for all humanity. all nations would come to the God of Israel and find peace. Primary source: they will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. The prophets also cried out against social injustice. They condemned the rich for causing the poor to suffer. They denounced luxuries, and they threatened Israel with prophecies of dire punishments for these sins. They said that God's command was to live justly, share with others, and care for the poor and the unfortunate. These words became a source for ideals of social justice. The following selection makes clear the prophet's belief that unjust actions would bring God's punishment. Primary source: the Lord enters into judgment against the elders and leaders of his people. It is you who have ruined my vineyard. The plunder from the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor? Your men will fall by the sword, your warriors in battle. The gates of Zion will lament and mourn. Isaiah chapter 3, verses 14 to 17, 24 to 26. The religion of Israel was unique among the religions of Western Asia and Egypt. The biggest difference was its belief in only one God, monotheism. In other ancient religions, only priests and some rulers had access to the gods. In the Jewish tradition, God's wishes, though communicated to the people through prophets, had been written down. No leader of Israel could claim that he alone knew God's will. This knowledge was available to anyone who could read the Hebrew Bible. Although the prophets developed a concern for all humanity, the demands of Judaism, the need to obey God, encouraged a separation between Jews and their non-Jewish neighbors. Unlike most other peoples of Southwest Asia, Jews would not accept the gods of their conquerors or neighbors and could consequently not be integrated into another community. The Phoenicians, a Phoenician lake, spread along the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Phoenicia was a collection of independent city-states. Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos were major port cities. The Phoenicians were a sea-going people skilled at both navigation and trade. Powered by oars and sails, their ships traveled westward across the Mediterranean. By around 900 BC, Phoenician merchants and traders had set up extensive Mediterranean trade routes. Some ships went further, traveling to ports in Britain, Spain, and along the west coast of Africa. Colonies and trade goods. In time, Phoenicians established merchant colonies near their trade routes on the southern coast of Spain, Iberia, western coast of Sicily, and northern coast of Africa. Carthage became one of Phoenicia's largest and most important colonies. Unlike many other colonies in the ancient world, these settlements were not founded in response to overcrowding at home or desire for empire. Interest in trade led to settlement. Colonies served as trading posts and as places to dock and resupply ships. Most were located along coasts, on offshore islands, or peninsulas with easy access to the sea. Phoenician ships carried a variety of goods including timber, glass, tin, silver, ivory carvings, and metal work. Phoenicia's best-known luxury export was cloth colored with a dye known as Tyrian purple that came from the Murex sea snail. Only the rich could afford this costly purple cloth. Spreading culture. The most lasting contribution of the Phoenicians was not their skills as sailors or traders, but the writing system they used as they crossed the Mediterranean. As the Phoenicians built up trade networks, their writing system spread. The Greeks adopted and modified the Phoenician alphabet. Centuries later, the Romans carried this alphabet throughout their empire.